All right.
Mike.
Here.
Jerry.
Here.
Doug.
Here.
John.
Here.
Karen. Here.
All right, and we've got the agenda in front of us for tonight. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, aye.
Jerry, aye.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. We've got our opening citizen comment section. So we'll ask if there's anybody from the public that would like to address the council for any items on the agenda. With the one exception here, we've got a few guests to talk about the mobile food permit. Invite you to speak at that point. Are there any other interests in addressing the council from the public? Do we have anybody online?
I don't think so. I can't tell.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of technical difficulty with our TV at the moment. Okay, well, hearing nothing, we'll move on. Next up is the consent agenda. If there's discussion needed, we can have that. Otherwise, we'll take a motion to consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John, aye.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. All right, we'll jump right into the Peosta Community Center update and Director Bauer.
Do you guys have any questions? Sorry, I have a broken popcorn machine down at the concession stand. That's what I was talking about.
A broken what?
Popcorn machine.
Oh, boy.
No, right? So no popcorn tonight.
That's tough.
I got one if you need to borrow.
I was gonna ask you actually.
You need to go down.
It's like the movie The Lion, kind.
Uh,
Never seen that.
Ironically, Woodlawn, I'm not sure what it is, but that's actually gonna be Ferdinand. It's actually the one we're doing, that one. That is what I need to prove. Thank you. The only other thing I have to add, we are doing soccer registration is gonna start here by the end of the week as well. That starts usually August-ish, so.
How do the memberships stack up to last year?
We're definitely still down, but we're starting to trend back up, so it's getting there. Hopefully a little more. My hope is that.
Gotta have a crosshair, right?
Yeah, to actually have those people come back after the summer. We are going to put out there a summer discount for all the college kids, but for anyone else that wants to use it too, for now through September 5th, we're just gonna do $100 for a single membership. So that any kids coming home can obviously use it, but anyone else that wants to try it for the summer too. So hopefully we get some there too.
Stacy, I would like to pass along an acknowledgement for you and your staff. I understand we've done the last of the planned Mercy One COVID clinics. So in the course of all the ones we did, the number I got back from Mercy One was 14,650 doses. And nothing but overwhelmingly positive feedback for the experience for everybody coming through, as well as the volunteers. So hats off. I mean, that's really set the bar for the rest of the county on how this kind of stuff can be done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for community center? All right. Thank you, Stacy. We'll move on to police. Chief Comer.
You guys have my reports. The things I can touch on are I did buy a new squad car, ordered a new squad car. It's me Dodge Charger. Hopefully it'll be outfitted by Raycom and getting the striping, the details put on. Hopefully everything will be ready by late July or early August, as long as the car comes in on time. The school radar signs, you guys knew that we had some issues with the signs. You guys could see them as they were coming up. A couple of the computer modules inside the signs fried when we moved them. They were under warranty, and they're fixed now. Everything's working good except for the one out in Cox Springs, and we're just waiting for that module to come in, replace that, and we'll get it set. And we did change it. I don't know if you saw it or not. Did you see it? That it goes instead of blinking fast, it goes to a full, like 25 and under, it's just kind of a straight speed, not
Nice.
flashes at you.
Appreciate it, chief. Awesome. Oh, I think it's good. I think it'll make you, it's a notice thing, right? It's, oh, something's flashing at me, right? I should, so thank you for that.
Yep. Also, the one thing I did not include is there is step enforcement, May 24th through June 6th. That's the ticket or click it, click it or ticket national campaign, first step. If you want to add that to your little notes.
And tell our spouses, spouses and kids.
What day was that again?
Yep, May 24th through June 6th. We'll be out and about enforcing some overtime with that, so make sure you write that down, guys.
Is that your friend?
My car's too annoying if I.
And the other thing, we did pull the numbers off the Birds of Mara sign, as in like the statistics. So everybody claims there's heavy speeding on that road, which at times there probably is. But what do you guess what you think the average speed is on Birds by Amara by Seaton over there? You know that speed sign right at Amara?
Yeah.
On Birds, what do you think it is? 30? It's actually 25.7. So they're actually going the speed limit. Now, I'm saying there are numbers that fluctuate into the 30s, maybe a couple 40s, but 98% compliance are at that 25 mark. And that's what the sign is rated is the 25 mark. Then it slows down to the 20 after that 20-mile-per-hour sign, right at that sign. That's when it goes into the 20. So people are.
So when it first initially picks up the vehicle, it's at 20, what do you say, 20?
25.7 is the average speed. And that was a 2-month period and approximately 300 cars per day, give or take,
Wow.
So.
That's the average speed when they first pick it up?
Yeah, throughout all, so what it does is I believe it collects all the speeds. Like every time it flashes a number at you, it collects that data. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Consider that's a great thing, actually.
Surprising.
Now, don't get me wrong, there are numbers that fluctuate into the 30s too, and 40s, but that's very rare occasions, so. And all the other numbers, we didn't get the numbers because the signs fried, so I never got a chance to get those. So hopefully we'll have numbers for you next council meeting to kind of give you an idea.
That's interesting.
Is the data in such a form that we'd also be able to get a count of cars by time of day?
I believe so, but that's something I'm still looking into. We're starting to just play with it, now being nice out, we're starting to learn the system since we had to reprogram it, but I believe so.
Okay.
Yep.
That may be helpful for other purposes.
Other than that, that's about all I got for you.
How's the drug box doing?
It's doing great, actually. I never counted the weight. I was gonna do that, but people are dropping stuff off and pulling stuff out, putting in their evidence, and yeah, we're collecting it. I don't know the weight, but they're using it.
Good.
Good. I guess the other thing, real quick, I'm working with Dean on kind of a new sign project with signs that are faded, leaning, just need to be replaced. We're trying to get that through, hopefully by the end of the summer, would you say, Dean? But the problem with it is trying to order the signs with the prison issues that they're having there. They're not making the signs currently, so it may take a little longer. That's something we're just gonna have to deal with, but we're gonna try to get the old signs replaced. I'm going around taking pictures of signs for him so he knows which ones, so we can get them ordered, and then his guys can go out there and do that.
I actually do beds I've ordered, found a new vendor over in Dyersville, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have them all ordered, but
So good.
Great.
the higher priority ones. Stop
Like
signs.
Oh, I was gonna say the roundabout one that's all yellow.
Not the roundabout one, yeah. I said the high priority one.
Chief, just from your perception, do you see any trends in the arrests? Or is it pretty much as it usually is? No?
Yeah, it's pretty much as it is normal. This month, I think it was a little higher. I want to revoke suspensions, just traffic stops that resolve. Basically, what it was BARDs, not BARDs, revoked, suspended, and yeah, I think that's about it. But for the most part, it's all traffic stuff where they get citations and it's considered an arrest. Okay, normal COVID times, we would take them to jail for it. But since it's COVID times, the jail does not take them, so they get a citation basically to appear for it. So this month was a little higher than normal on that. But the guys are out, you know, stopping the cars and they're getting their arrest. I think it's a good thing.
And I have to ask, I'll expose my ignorance, where's Depot Ridge?
Depot Ridge.
Yeah, that's a street for one of these.
I didn't know to go Depot Ridge.
I don't have it right in front of me. What, does it say town?
Isn't it over by those businesses on the highway,
Oh, sure.
closest to the fairgrounds?
No. So maybe one of those might be sheriff's office that got put in there too.
Okay,
Because of the Peosta stats, they come in as the arrests that were in the Peosta area. That very well could be. I guess I don't remember that one, looking at that one, but some of them are say ones like on Thunder Hills Road or something, that could be a traffic stop that led to Thunder Hills Road.
Yep.
You know, that is a way. Another one was a shoplifting that occurred at Fairway, and we made the arrest technically in Farley at the Garden Apartments in Farley. You know, so that's how that works.
Depot Ridge looks like.
Either there was a warrant that we picked them up on, and that's where they went to get them or whatever, or that's where we made contact with them.
Okay,
So that's how that works.
Depot Ridge appears to be by the truck stop.
Okay, so that probably was somebody they were probably following in town, ended up on the highway, and they got close to Depot Ridge over by the truck stop area.
yep. Hadn't heard of it. All right,
Any ATV issues?
I think we had 2, and that was just during daytime hours or whatever. Yep.
are we still just doing an advisory and letting them go?
Correct. So far, it has no citations or anything. It's more of a let them know. Yep. And there were new people. It's never the same reoccurring people. Otherwise, it probably would get a citation. It's always the new ones. Yep.
Very good. Any other comments, feedback, questions for the chief? All right. Thanks, Mike. On to Public Works and Director Ludwig.
I got nothing to really add to the monthly report. Did share a little footage with Karen on the wastewater treatment plans. Got some updated footage on that, I should say, so, which is actually pretty interesting, I thought.
I'll ask since there's no audio to it. I understand we're a little bit ahead of schedule with the favorable weather, or just
Yeah,
comfortably on
our
schedule?
structures and yeah. I
We're not-
wouldn't necessarily say too far ahead of schedule, but on schedule.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, the weather is definitely in their favor.
When's the estimated completion next summer?
For the whole complete?
Yeah.
Yeah, like June. I mean, it should be up and running by hopefully late October. Would be nice. November at latest.
And how's Matt coming along with his education?
He's got all, he's up to date on his books and stuff like that. It's just a matter of waiting for the completion of this to complete his schooling, basically, because this is added to his schooling. So when this is done, then he can do his testing. They're looking at probably sometime about mid-June to start filling those tanks as far as hydraulic testing them. So they'll be pumping water actually out of the old lagoons into them, that old shaped tank there. And then the duplicated box one on the left-hand side of the screen there as well has to be hydraulic tested. So they're looking at doing that sometime, like I say, about mid-June.
Great, that's awesome.
Yeah, other than that, I really have nothing. Anybody have any questions on anything?
There's 3 driveway pictures in the board docs.
Correct. That would be the. Yes, I'm trying.
Yeah, they look like they're all backside of concrete.
Jack Putin's resident or what?
Yep. Yeah. This was one that came to my attention for the P and Z question. One of the meetings has been talked about, I think by Whitney before she left, and Whitney had talked to Dean a bit. There was just never really I'll say a final conclusion. Seemed like a representative or two in the P and Z thought something should be done about this. Client. So that's why it has come up. Just to kind of put it before you guys to see what your thoughts are. Issues would potentially include gravel surfacing, retaining wall maybe in the right of way a bit. The revetment is in the right of way, not necessarily a problem, but in the driveway access to that particular road.
There's not a permit for it.
Yeah, so.
So this is clearly a project that should be permitted and is not. Do we know when it was put in?
Probably almost a year ago. Not quite a year ago, probably 9 months, 10 months ago.
And has there been any contact with the homeowner?
I spoke with him before he bought it and I told him he wasn't allowed to put in a driveway. He would need a permit for that. I didn't believe the council would approve a permit on Cox Springs Road like that.
So from a P and Z point of view, are we able to point to specific verbiage that says you can't do this?
I didn't necessarily see anything that said you couldn't. I think what it comes down to, where the house is built as part of a subdivision where it was platted without showing driveways or access to that road, which would be one argument. Your code requires pavement for driveways, which my take is talking to Dean that the owner was maybe up for that and that he'd maybe be willing to do that. But I think, Dean, correct me if I'm wrong.
He approached me about paving
Yeah.
concrete and I said, absolutely not.
I think he definitely would have to would want a permit and be authorized to make access to that road if he was going to pave it. But if it truly is going to be a driveway, should be paved. I think you can argue about, well, could he call it landscaping? I think he can call it that, but there's no judge that would buy that if you ended up before a judge. Clearly, it's a driveway. He uses it to take a car in and out that he drives off and on, not terribly often, is my understanding. And so it really comes down to a question of whether or not I guess the next step really would be, without making a decision, sitting before you all, would be to tell them you need to submit a permit. You need to submit an application. And the application will be reviewed, either approved or denied. If it gets denied, you can appeal it probably through your ordinances, but you need to go through the right steps. The risk you run, like a lot of things, this is done, there it sits, it's been there, if you don't do anything, pretty soon somebody else is going to do it. So it needs to be addressed, whether it's appropriate or not.
Is there a culvert pipe underneath that, or is it just water flow over it?
No, it flows through the rock, larger stone.
You were pretty adamant about no concrete. Why?
Because we're not accepting a driveway accessed off of Cockbrook in that subdivision, and a safety concern of that hill.
Which, if the safety concern is the reason, then somebody who's not over the top of the hill may still try to argue that they can have one. I think the argument about platting does not provide for driveway out the back seems to be the most sustaining argument.
I think the city could choose to permit driveways out the rear of these structures into these houses are condos front. They have 2 frontages, which doesn't happen all over the place by any stretch. So it would be within your rights to permit such a use. I don't think your ordinance necessarily says you can or you can't. I think the only argument that you can't is that it wasn't in the plat that the council approved and accepted and show driveways there. So you can leave it grass and you could have, obviously, there's a garage on the back of that building and you can drive in and out of over the grass. Might be some nuisance provisions that talk about, the yard if it got all tore up and ruddy and muddy, he might have an issue, but if he's responsible to wait until he can always drive over the grass. So knowing that, would the council rather have him have a paved driveway? Clearly, you probably don't want to start having gravel driveways in new subdivisions.
So regardless of go ahead.
Yeah, that's the last thing I'd say, and it isn't necessarily a major hazard, like anytime you allow things in the right of way, you're kind of accepting some responsibility or potential liability for that. One thing that I've seen in other cities, and I'm talking about the rock here, which isn't, if you put a culvert in and had an embankment going up, so a car went off the road and hits that embankment, hits it, and somebody flies forward and gets hurt, the city could be liable, taking into account that installation probably didn't meet SUDAS standards. Other people will sometimes put iron posts out in their yard to keep people from getting off the shoulder and driving in their grass, and somebody runs off the road and hits one of those. Well, the city's gonna be liable. This rock probably doesn't create a significant risk, but if somebody did go off the road a bit and that was just grass, they could probably correct and get back on without damaging their car. If they got off the road and went through this rock, they might do some damage or something at the end, but they could potentially get hurt, do damage to their car. Arguably, the city could have some liability. It's a slight stretch because I don't think this is high risk stuff. But that's just another piece of this to be concerned with, allowing improvements in the right of way.
So at a minimum, it seems like this ought to get an application for a permit, even if it's retroactive. That would at least fix one glaring deficiency in the way this has been done thus far.
Yep, I think you can be approached with, there has been some debate over the last year. COVID, the city administrator left, but this needs to get resolved. And clearly it's there, but you didn't follow the right steps. So we can leave it there for now while you go back in time and take those steps and then see where that leads.
And that application to do this, does that by normal process channel through P&Z?
Normally, it would just go to the council for approval. We've had a few of them over, couple that applied over on Bryn Drive too, with the frontage on Peosta Community Parkway, and those have been denied. So there is a little bit of a precedent on a front and back
Thank you.
driveway.
And what does the city do with building permits in general? Because I was mistaken, the dean had been seeing those, but did they go to the city engineer to look at?
They go to ECIA.
ECIA,
The
that's right.
building code.
So ECIA would look at it,
Okay.
right?
Yes,
So
there wasn't a driveway on the building.
So
For the house,
Correct.
yeah.
So since he didn't pull a permit, what's the action that the city could take? I mean, is there any teeth where you don't pull a permit, you go ahead and do it?
I'm familiar with city codes, but I'm not over familiar with Peosta City Code enough to say that there's probably some provisions in there that would have specific penalties in place that the city could assess for taking action without having the appropriate permits. It can be for, anywhere from, in this case, maybe you didn't have a permit you were supposed to. You just need to remove it, return it to grass, and that'll be it. Or you could say, by city code, you can get charged $150 or $250 for installing an improvement without a permit where a permit was required. And we want the penalty, and you have to remove it because, it's not permitted. Now, if you want to apply for a permit, you can. It may still be denied, but there's all the multiple options there. I don't, no right or wrong answer there. I guess if you were of a mind that somebody thumbed their nose at the city did something they were told not to, then clearly you'd want to seek a penalty probably. If someone
Sounds like it kind of,
made an innocent mistake of sorts, then you could just say, hey, you need to go through the hoops, and if this can't happen, we need to figure it out.
it sounds like he or she basically said, we're doing it anyway.
I told them they needed a permit. I never saw one.
Let me speak.
He approached me and asked me about it. I don't technically know that I can tell you that you can't put rock there. Because, and Whitney and I had this discussion as well. Because as Doug had said, I had a conversation with Doug as well. If somebody has a well-worn path, a wheel path that they're obviously using a driveway in their backyard through the grass, then where do we stand on that? It's obviously, if it's a worn path, it's a driveway, right? I don't know. I mean, if you were to put clean stone down, could that technically be landscaping up against a retaining wall? So I mean, I had conversation with Whitney. I told him it wasn't gonna be hard surface. So, I mean, at fault, I'll own up to some of it, I guess. He did not apply for a permit, no. But he did confront me about it. I didn't know how to approach that argument as far as, you know, if you were to say to me, okay, what if my neighbor has a worn path through the grass?
In your.
How is that acceptable? I'm not defending him. I'm just saying I'm gonna own up to the fact that I was approached by it.
Sure.
I would say that it's just not, you know, the fact that the plat, the subdivision plat showed houses, showed driveways going one way, it doesn't necessarily preclude a driveway going the other way, you know, because the plat's not going to show everything. And the city code probably doesn't speak directly to the issue of prohibiting driveways in this subdivision to this road. I mean, it's probably not spelled out. With that said, I still think, you know, as he was told, even though it may not be clear in the code what you can or can't do, obviously it's clear you need a permit. You know, and that didn't happen.
And Dean, in your conversations with this homeowner, is there anything that was said in those conversations that you think could have been construed as communicating that he didn't?
I guess as far as a permit, it was never mentioned.
Okay. And I understand from Karen that when asked, you told me this person did, and there was never an application for one.
Correct.
Okay. So then that to me comes back to there's a violation. Somebody knew they should have got a permit and they didn't, with no other reason to think they shouldn't have.
The other two that you mentioned, were they on this road also? Similar to this that requested a driveway were denied?
Those on
No.
red.
No,
Those
different area.
by the, yeah, just off of Peosta Community Parkway,
Gotcha.
but they filed permits.
That would have considered a curb cut as well.
So there's a little bit of.
On branch.
I don't think there's that big of a difference. I mean, you're still trying to eliminate the amount of access onto these roads. Right? I mean, that's the, I would not want to see a lot more of these on Cox Spring. I mean, I don't think we would have approved it if it came to a permit.
Well, and at some point, we're going to be resurfacing this road. What's the obligation on the city to reconnect the road to the driveway once that's done?
This is a budget.
Wider too, right? So.
And
everything was put it in.
I'm going to assume that the rock that was put in wasn't done in compliance with any stormwater practices.
It wasn't, but I will say, in his defense, on that rock, it will slow the water. It is somewhat of a benefit because it'll slow the water down and disperse the water coming down through there.
And I noticed the wall looks like there was no expense spared there either. Looks like a really well done wall.
Well, the wall's the wall. I mean, that's completely different than
Right. So to your point though, it wasn't just shoddily thrown together.
But if it's in the right of way and we dig it up to fix something, we wouldn't have no obligation to fix it because it was never permitted.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly where the right of way line is there. I'm pretty confident most of that rock would probably be in the right of way. I'm not sure about the retaining wall.
So it seems like the next step is still the same. We advise the homeowner that we need to have a permit application for this driveway, consistent with the advice they were given a year or so ago. And we'll let it go through the process.
and with no guarantees that it will be approved.
Right.
You want me to make that contact?
That'd be great.
The post down at the corner, is that something you put in or is that?
No, the homeowner did that.
Just to keep them off from driving on the grass?
Right, because it gets rutted up all the time and he just had it.
Yeah, I didn't see that when I
Yeah, we
made that
see
comment
it.
earlier, but that's the kind of stuff I'll see once in a while in other cities.
So does that have to be addressed then too?
Cut the
You know, up to the discretion, you know, it's
It looks like crap.
like 2 or 3 posts with like a chain hanging between it or just a rope.
Just that caution tape.
I think it's just caution tape.
And when or when they're plowing and stuff, they're right in the road.
Well, I would suggest in the letter that any improvements or it's any kind that are proposed to go in the right of way need to be identified in your application. So that would have to be explained and why they want it and its purpose, such.
In that same communication, you'd make it clear where the right of way is, either by dimension or something.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
I think they'd have property pins in that new subdivision. Should be pretty clear.
All right. Any more discussion needed? Was that the last thing on there?
Yep.
All right. Anything else for Dean?
Know why Black Hills is putting down flags?
Do I know what Black Hills is putting down flags? Specific area?
Of course.
Oh, her yard, okay. Yes. A design locate called in by B&K for that intersection.
I mean, they're digging or not?
Pardon?
Are they gonna dig something or not?
To my knowledge, going forward, the next digging is gonna be taking your house down and just.
No, they're gonna sink it in.
No dig, no dig. It's part of the ACE project, as far as stormwater, reconstruction and stuff of that sort.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just a design.
So what you're saying is no guarantee one way or the other, right?
In your property, the stormwater will go through your property.
Okay, sounds good.
I don't know if you're gonna have a house.
So. You want it to?
Well,
Try to run it uphill.
I'll pass.
All right. Good update, Dean. Thank you. Anything else for the council can offer for you? All right. And while we got you here, we'll jump on to the pay application number 8 for the wastewater treatment facility. For the amount of $635,253.12.
635 or 653?
35, according to this. 635, 253.
I have
Say that one.
something to add on that.
I didn't hear your comment, Dean.
I have to add to that. Actually deduct. Find it here. Something over refrigerator item on this refrigerator sampler. They're looking to get $11,792.95, paid of 91%. Deduct that.
So what are
That
the,
particular item is not on site. For starters, it's not installed, nor is it on site that they should get any payment on that.
refrigerated samplers?
Yes. So,
So the 1207.
well, they can honestly not say that they want, partial payment as far as on-site materials, because it's not even there.
So the number in the far right column, the 120705, is that? No, that's the balance to completion.
What number is it, Dean?
Row 108, or item number 108.
Yes, item 108. They're asking for an amount of $11,792.95.
So we take that off of the 635.
I didn't look at the front page. Is there a 5% retainage?
Yes, there is 5% of retainage. I want to run that through the engineer too and let them know so that they can clean up the pay app.
So do we,
It also affects the EDA grant, and the receipt for that, or the application amount for that, and it'll also affect SRF. So this needs to be correct.
Okay.
For those other two pieces.
so we'll send this back for a revision before taking action on it?
Well,
Can we approve it subject to the changes?
Yeah, so then we'll have the engineer correct that. And Matt Speck will have to correct the EDA paperwork, that we'll have to take care of that through the SRF too.
that's the only issue you found.
Defer the payment. It's their mistake, not ours.
Okay,
No, I get that, but I mean, being a good partner, if they'll just speed the process along. But I get what you're saying.
Probably something the contract documents, they request a payment once a month.
Yes.
Yeah, probably indicates that they're supposed to turn in paperwork by a certain time and the council will approve monthly payments. I get that it's is their mistake, but
We put it on in the months.
yeah, depending what the contract language reads, sometimes it speaks to which meeting, like you need to have your paperwork turned to the engineer by the first Tuesday, to the city by the next Wednesday to be approved, depends how specific it is. But otherwise you could, if that's the only issue Dean found with it, that council could approve payment with the understanding that that line item would be removed in the front page of the pay request, amended accordingly.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll make a motion, pay request be paid with 108 line item removed and the front cover to be updated.
I'll second.
Doug, aye.
Karen, I.
John,
Okay.
motion carries with 5. And that completes the public works section.
Now, Eldon Schneider actually called today. He wants to set up either a work session or a meeting with at least Dean, Mayor, Council, or a couple council people. Doug, I know he mentioned you for the sludge removal. So they want to start talking about that. How does the council want to move forward with that?
Who was specifically requested?
Eldon Schneider,
No, from here. Who did he want?
Dean, the mayor, and Doug for the
Hughes.
sludge, Doug Hughes for the sludge removal.
Sounds good. And are we saying Doug Hughes?
Yes.
I'll be nice.
I did give them approval to resample 2, 3, 5, and 6 for land application. Of the cost of 3667 or something.
And do you know what he's going to, or is he asking for something from us?
I think it's.
In that in
change
particular?
orders.
Just approving change orders. There's numerous change orders.
Oh, okay.
I think
One
they
is
wanna work
a
towards-
replacement of a manhole that I rejected. Another one that I rejected was some storm sewer extension. Another one, well, there's about 5 of them.
Okay. And so we talked through these, whatever we agree to ultimately is going to need to come through the council for approval, right?
Correct, it'll come through as a change order, but I think they wanna work through the logistics before they get to that point.
Okay.
One was painting and caulking of some of the ceilings in the buildings. Because the ceilings were not inclusive in painting.
You good with it?
Any day except Wednesday.
All right. So Doug says not Wednesday. My availability is scheduled or day dependent. We'll just need to negotiate that, but I'm open for that. You good, Dean? You want to meet with him?
Yep.
All right. So if you just want to have him call me, we'll pick a date that's not Wednesday.
Have Eldon give you a call, Jim?
I think I'm probably going to be the toughest one to schedule.
Okay.
At least during business hours.
They had asked that Dean's job would be really easy. He just said, okay, to change orders.
He's good at that.
But I'm saying having somebody looking at them and challenging them is good. And my experience is that doesn't always happen. Because Dean's paycheck doesn't change whether he approves that pay or the change order or not. So having somebody critically looking at them is a big deal for a city.
We've established a bit of a reputation for that already.
Yeah, it's good.
We say we, Dean.
Missed out on that conversation.
It was all good.
It's all good.
All good. Thank you, Dee.
Sounds like yes. All right. Anything else for Public Works? Thank you, Dean. On to the administration and resolution of support for Peosta Square workforce housing tax credit.
I added some content there that we should hold off one more meeting while I work with Mr. Schulte on that. The paperwork actually related to the housing tax credit, it just became available to actually start processing through the state last week. So we don't need to take action on that yet. And I want to be sure we get it drafted up correctly. So, and he's no problem with that.
Great, thank you.
Motion on that?
On the next meeting.
Nice. All right, we will move on then to the one that our audience has been patiently waiting for, the mobile food permit ordinance discussion. So I'll just try to tee us up. I understand you've got some, you'd like to address the council. Got a few comments prepared. So this is following on the conversation where we've got the mobile food truck ordinance that we adopted last year. After public hearings for that, but it's always difficult to find the, get everybody. Following input from the mobile food truck vendors as well as the local businesses. And despite our best efforts, we still find some situations that'll come up where we need to tweak it. And so we're open to that kind of a conversation. We understand you've got an event planned, so we'd like to hear some more about that. And what you think we would need to happen so we can maintain what the intent of the ordinance is and still have it adjusted in a way that it can accommodate other needs.
I think I'll go ahead and get started. I'm Melissa O'Brien, principal at Cass Elementary. Hello, I know several of you.
Yep.
Yes, we have had, so food trucks have kind of provided, filled in a niche that was missing, particularly this year. Teachers aren't ones that have a half-hour lunch even or a place to go in a pandemic. We used to have luncheons at school and things like that. We can't eat together. We are eating in separate areas all over the school. So one of the things that we've done just to kind of normalize things a little bit is schedule food trucks on a regular basis that come in. And it's a niche that brick and mortar restaurants, you don't even have time to run and go pick up things and bring back large orders. So the second thing is we have events that we're undergoing a large fundraiser for a new playground at our school with a budget of $75,000 to $100,000. And this is our parent group members right here. And they're embarking on a series of several ambitious fundraisers. And one of them is on June 2nd, kind of a kickoff to summer night. We're having a series of food trucks come and just provide our families with meals, and they'll picnic out in our yard and eat their meals. And all of those vendors are giving a kickback to our school for our fundraiser. And like Jim said, it's hard to engage in those ordinances until kind of sometimes after the fact. And so some of those vendors, the kind of Dairy Association, things like that, have expressed concern that they're just not in Peosta a whole lot. And that, one of the things that kind of came up is perhaps the consideration of a one-time fee versus a yearly fee. I certainly can appreciate that you want to know who's making food in your city limits. And you want to know, I can appreciate that. Just perhaps, something like that. Do you guys have anything to add? Yeah.
We don't know if this is this is hopefully not the only time that we're gonna invite coffee trucks to come. And so I guess just the option of allowing, it's kind of all or nothing right now, either $200 or you're not allowed. The option of a day pass would, maybe allow people who, yes, don't frequent the area very much to come, and yet our school will still benefit from it.
I am gonna go just a little step further that it is easy. It's a really nice fundraiser for us because a lot of our donations come from the parents of our school, right? So this is still a benefit that they can come and they can be there with their children, but we're getting the money of this fundraiser back from the food trucks. So I was wondering if maybe they were donating back to the school. If they were at the school, we could have waived the fee. There are multiple other food trucks. We had talked just a few weeks ago. There's a donut truck out of Iowa City that maybe the day before school, they could come, do donuts and coffee, have kids decorate the sidewalk, just get familiar with the school, and then the next day would be drop off. As you're walking in, you can see where your mom and dad wrote a heart with chalk to you or something like that. So this isn't our only event that we use for this. This is just our large event. We haven't been able to really do anything all year with COVID, and we really just asked for a lot of cash donations from our parents. So it is just nice that they can be there, get their food, have a picnic, and the kickback we're getting is actually from these vendors. So originally we did have 5 vendors. We were told last week, it was brought to our attention of the $200. When we then told them, we had 3 that backed out. They didn't have the permits and they were just like, we're giving the kickback to the school and then $200, we can't. And understandable, but that's where we decided, well, maybe we can talk to them and see if there's something we can do to help us. We haven't actually canceled the event yet. Hoping we don't have to, but we did ask another Adobos is now coming. So we do have 3, but it would be nice if those the Dairy Association one is a nonprofit organization. And you guys, they are good to our school. They just donated for every kid got ice cream 2 weeks ago from them. They donated last fall or the fall before that. It was canceled last year. They came and gave ice cream to everyone that came to the school. Everyone got ice cream. So the Dairy Association has just been wonderful to us. So we would like to stay loyal to them, using them to come back by inviting them back to then now sell their stuff. Does anybody have any questions for us or?
Is there a percentage of proceeds?
So typically we do 10%, but there have been people who have given 15. Focus 20% Focus Creations. They're cookies and cupcakes. They said they would do 30. I mean, so they're pretty good. There has been other times where it was like, you made it 210, but we're gonna write a check for 250. So they would say, okay, we'll give you 10%, but they'll make 200 on the top. So it's nice.
Has the people that are currently have permits in the city, have they been reached out to as far as coming?
Yes, yeah. So we do have 3 that currently have permits that are coming.
In the ordinance, what the dairy you said, that's non-profit, doesn't our permit exempt them from having to get one?
And I guess the whole purpose of backup of what the reason of the ordinance, at least my understanding of why I wanted to go through is, so obviously we have brick and mortar stores that have a large investment in taxes, dollars, give to every donation that people that handouts that come to the door for the baseball team, softball teams, gymnastics, whatever the case may be.
Not always a school.
I'm sorry?
Not always a school. We do have a few that have not.
Right, but hear me out, is so we, as them being taxpayers, they have an investment in the community. These food trucks, as wonderful as they are, I eat on them 3 days a week. They don't have an investment in us, right? They could come out once and we never see them again. They're not invested in the community. So our thought process was only having the one fee is that they would come out once, pay the $200, but they may in the next 6 months, 8 months, maybe out here another 10 times. So trying to get them to reinvest in the community, come out here more than just the one time a year was a thought process. And
We schedule fast, so it is hard. So some others that did have them are scheduled,
Right,
So that also makes it difficult.
right. It does.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it very difficult, but if they come out here for a day, mean, that's my perspective on where we're at.
Doug, to answer your question, the language in the code related to nonprofits doesn't make nonprofit food vendors, if you will, exempt. What it says is vendors that are permitted through Peosta Economic Development Corporation or other nonprofit community organization in conjunction with community special events shall be exempt. So it's the organization that's doing the sponsoring needs to be a nonprofit community organization is how I read it. There's a comma in there that I don't think is supposed to be there. So a nonprofit community organization, then you can say, does that mean, nonprofit as defined by the Internal Revenue Service? As we've talked maybe a little bit about this, or is it kind of can somebody just say, well, I'm not profit because I'm raising money for a cause?
So when you say that is the Nut Group, the nonprofit in this situation, would they be considered the nonprofit? Since they're hosting it?
Well, that's who we look at. We look at the host. And is the host a nonprofit under this definition? And I would say it's not 100% clear. If you read just at face value, when it talks about nonprofit community organization, to me means that it's a true nonprofit under the law. It isn't an organization of people who are doing something to raise money for something, not to profit themselves. That isn't really but again, the code doesn't go into enough detail maybe on that end. But if you read it the way it reads now, I think you'd read it as it would have to be a nonprofit community organization. So you look to the IRS rules of what is a nonprofit. It is the organization that's sponsoring the event, a nonprofit. Now the council could expand that by amending the code to make clear. You could say, schools are going to be exempt. School sponsored events will be exempt. In addition to your traditional nonprofit type organization sponsored events. So if you had a Friends of the Public Library is an example of a typical 501c3 organization. If you had a friends group that wanted to have a food truck, they'd be exempt.
So we as the PEP group, we are a 501(c) organization.
So 501c3.
501(c).
C3.
Or C, yes.
That's
Sorry.
all right.
And then I regret it again.
That's all right. So if they're truly a 501c3, even the narrowest reading of the current ordinance would say they are a nonprofit. So that a vendor that would be permitted through a nonprofit community organization, community special events, there's no definition of what that means. So, I think you could read, an event the school is sponsoring or that the 501c is sponsoring to raise money for a playground. I think you.
So what do you mean by sponsoring though? Just that they invited them out or are they?
Well, it just says the purpose.
And again, the way the permitted word is in there, vendors that are permitted through Peosta Economic Development Corporation. We'll throw that out because that's not what happened. So let's start over. Vendors that are permitted through other nonprofit community organizations in conjunction with the community special event. So they are a nonprofit community organization. Is this what they're looking to do in conjunction with a community special event? And there's no definition for that, either. It's just kind of a general understanding of what is or what isn't a community special event. Is an event sponsored at a school considered a community? I don't know.
And this is our first new ordinance.
Yep.
So we're setting precedent.
So the intention, when we talked about this, was the example that was set out there that Mighty M were to hire whatever truck, come out and give their employees food and Mighty M was paying for it, that was allowable.
Correct.
But if a food truck was to drop off in their parking lot, have each individual family person have lunch there, then it was not, right? They'd have to have a permit. So, I don't know, lack of better, how do we marry this or how is this?
It's a nonprofit.
Yeah, the existence of a 501c3 is a pretty clear delineator in my mind.
IDM's not.
But it's, okay, that's where the nonprofit is, which I get. So, but the nonprofit's not, I'm using that as, I'm just using it as the same reasoning that we had with Mighty M. So let's say the nonprofit is the piece of people that are inviting them out. Okay, so with that being, if Mighty M and the 503C, right?
C3.
501c3.
Same way. So if the the organization
Just say 50.
yeah, is the same as the company inviting someone out. Okay, and I'm not saying it is, if that is, and if the PEP group isn't paying for that and the individuals are going paying themselves, is there a difference between that and Mighty M inviting them out and having them individually pay for it? That's the question I have. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
501, no, that's still the group and they're putting on this promotion, right?
Right.
Mighty M would just be inviting them to come sit in the parking lot.
Which is kind of what they're doing.
For this doesn't mean, I mean, we're putting.
We're paying,
work
yeah,
and
we have paid
sponsoring
for,
and
you know,
doing everything, all the
advertising and stuff.
advertisement, you know, our big fundraiser, or, you know, so technically, just because we're not buying each individual family their meal, we are still sponsoring this as a nonprofit organization.
They're using the funds proceeds for some.
Right, I'm not arguing any of this. All
Yeah, no,
I'm just trying to look 5 years down the road, it's gonna.
Right.
Yeah, I understand your side.
Actually, you mentioned something before on the percentage and what that could be.
Well, yeah, I think if you were, that really comes into play. That discussion was, let's say you're not a 501c3, you're just doing a nonprofit purpose. And then somebody says, well, but they're donating back. The donating back, if that was something that became an important piece of the puzzle of the council, it would be very hard to enforce, you know, because you could then get somebody to work around the ordinance and say, well, yeah, I'll donate 1%, you know, or I'm gonna raise my prices a little bit and give you a little bit back. In policing that, even in your case, you aren't gonna look at the books of the vendors and say, no, I wanna be sure you're giving me that 10%. It's a good faith thing. And that would be an issue that would come up clearly if you didn't have a 501c3 nonprofit. You know, I'm a little, you know, not concerned is a strong word, but when you talk about when you discussed the ordinance and passed it, the idea was that Mighty M brought somebody out and Mighty M paid them as opposed to the employees, it would be okay. I'm not sure the ordinance makes that clear.
Well, the idea was that then it's a caterer versus.
Yeah, and just looking at the definition, and you know, a mobile food vendor is a person engaged in the business of selling food or beverages from a mobile food unit. And really, any mobile food vendor that they've talked about is coming to town, you know, they're going to be selling it to somebody, whether it be Mighty M or whether it be their employees. They're selling food or beverages out of that mobile food unit. And then the next provision, it's unlawful for any person to engage in the sale of food or beverages from a mobile food without having a permit. So you know, it's an interpretive issue, I suppose, but it doesn't really clarify or make an exception for who's paying. So if the food is going out of the mobile food cart, it's being paid for by someone, they're selling out of that mobile food cart and they're supposed to have a permit.
What's the difference between that and Hy-Vee coming and setting something up?
Or just bringing a van full of food out that somebody ordered.
Well, in theory, they're selling that out of their store, you know, or just food cart, they're probably making it in the cart where Hy-Vee is making it somewhere else and delivering it.
So Copa's Creations, she doesn't make it on site, she has it made at her bakery and she delivers.
But is she selling it out of her cart or is she bringing it into the school?
Well, she would, at this event, yeah, she would.
Yeah.
I just thought you meant.
She's not making.
Yeah, but I think if Mighty M called Hy-Vee and they pull up in their truck and they carry everything inside to the conference room, that's true catering. But if they're having employees go out and just saying, yeah, I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna have that, and they give it to them and they just write down a note, that's $7, and at the end of the day, we're gonna bill Mighty M. Then they're selling it out of their cart.
So not to muddy the waters further, but there was another instance mentioned of somebody who comes with a grill and a tent and they set that up on the ground.
Yep.
And grill some burgers and sell those. It's not a mobile food truck.
Right.
It's a grill and a tent.
And that might fall under, that's a mobile food. Well,
Just
your mobile food vendor definition would say that isn't, you know, that might be, again, in other codes I looked at, there's also peddlers and solicitors type licenses. But, you know, in Monticello, for example, next to the convenience store downtown, you know, they let people set up in their driveway and they'll sell their sweet corn, you know, and they themselves set up.
Yes, that's
Do that?
another question. Are you guys, yeah, will the sweet corn,
Right.
will they be charged, you know, a permit also? That would probably differ from fresh.
If it's on private property.
Well, and arguably they aren't typically selling food from a mobile food unit, which is has some definition here. Anyway, there's some areas to read between the lines. It could be cleaned up.
Oh, it sounds like we need to clean some stuff up.
Yeah.
As far as these events go,
Second.
I think they're okay, they do.
that sounds to me, the operative word is special event. They're not hiring somebody to sit there every day.
Right.
They are a 501c3, so aren't they within their rights to have these events? Not checked.
Okay, so let's just spin this to fun, Karen, because I'm there on this one. But what about the one where we just had the coffee one coming in for Teachers Appreciation Day? Is that a big enough event to qualify?
Well, you know, COVID kind of stretched things. But the question comes down to really, is Peosta equipped to handle all their customers on their own? And that's where the food vendors would start coming in, is because there's been a lot of times when we couldn't handle all the people for lunch, like their half-hour lunches.
Sure.
Also,
And
there is no coffee place in Piasta. So
Well,
bring a coffee.
yeah.
for,
Right?
Yeah.
Can't wait for it, trust me, but.
I mean, that's what I say, it's a stretch. I mean, they sure aren't really hurting anybody right now. But
I think people might argue,
they got a permit, didn't they?
I think people might argue that they would be hurting the business. I mean, if you're on the other side of the shoe.
Yeah, I know if we were still,
Paige.
so I'd probably be screaming. But there's enough,
Yeah.
well,
But I-
that's one have, but I think,
yeah, because you guys are trying to have the,
Yeah, that's what brought us in.
understand.
That's how we.
That's why we're.
And the owner of the coffee truck, her parents felt so bad that our teachers weren't gonna be able to have it, that bought the entire school of Piasta's teachers coffee because she didn't have time to get her permit in order and she felt bad for that.
And they set up a Epworth.
It did work.
Good for the teachers, right?
Really appreciate it.
But that's something else, I think. I think this one could be definitely, it's an event. You know, you guys, I mean, Teachers Appreciation was a great thing, but it's pretty limited in scale, right? When you say, where this is more.
We don't have them at the school without saying, would you donate back to it, which so if they do come, we always say, would you come and donate back to the school?
But that, like he's saying, it's hard to,
And that isn't,
hard to police, right?
that under the
Right.
code isn't really required.
Right at this point, right?
We have more.
no,
Thought, Karen.
no, I'm figuring we're okay. According to what we have now, 501c3.
For this event on June 2nd.
So let me throw this one out.
And it would have been all right.
Okay. Let me
Right?
throw this out at you. So let's say the high school girls, boys have a softball, baseball tournament. Okay, they're tax exempt.
They are not a nonprofit. A school is tax exempt, but they're
Right.
not a nonprofit, kind of like a city. The city's not a
So
nonprofit
they had one that'd have to have a permit.
under this language. Unless you really stretch nonprofit again to say, if you're raising money for a good cause, we're gonna call you that.
But then that puts us in a position that takes deciders of what's a good cause.
Yep. You know, some of
We
the,
want to be more gray.
Kind of is a line.
some of these ordinances I've seen do specifically exempt cities. Anything sponsored by a city, anything sponsored by a school, or anything sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit are exempt. You don't get into, is it an event, is it not an event, it's something they're sponsoring. Now, will I keep everybody happy? No, we owned coffee shop restaurant for 13 years in Monticello. And we were very good at service, so the teachers came there often because they could get in and out. But on the training days, training days where they could take a whole hour probably. But that aside, Monticello never had food trucks until a local person decided they were going to do it. And they set up basically a Mexican menu food truck, and they just wanted to park wherever they wanted to. And yeah, our convenience stores that also serve food, some of the restaurants in town, the Mexican restaurant in town and others like, hey, how is this fair? Because we like the same issues you guys are. We pay a lot of taxes. We're here 365, 24/7. These people come in and don't have much of an investment, take our profits for a day. And even making cities exempt. For example, you have a big city sponsored ball tournament and you set up food trucks down there. Now the people stay there and eat instead of leaving there and going to a restaurant. So the same argument kind of applies, but it's just deciding where you want to draw that line. Because there is some things to be said for, do you have enough restaurant space to serve all the people that might be in town for a ball tournament?
Right, but if you buy stuff at the ball tournament, you're supporting the tournament. We've run into that, right? Where they'll go to the, so it's all how you want to
Absolutely
spin it, right?
Yep.
So how many events a year would you think you'd have?
So this is, really new to us, and essentially with COVID, food trucks are awesome because teachers sometimes only have 20 minutes, they can run out, they were donating back to us, it was great. We don't really have,
Not
much.
less than 3 to
3 to 5 a year?
4.
Yeah, yeah, like not,
Because before COVID had never
yeah.
had.
And in the winter, we don't really,
No.
it's more of our summer, our nice
Yeah,
months, we
food
don't.
trucks don't really work. in
No,
the
I
winter.
say, April to October are really the only time, with the snow, and it was too, we didn't have very many, so.
So is your ask tonight to have us consider a 1-day pass?
That would be awesome for our June 2nd, but, if you could consider future events too, like we did discuss the donut and coffee day before school. So that one was another one that we knew we would be having.
Perhaps considering the 501c3 option. That could exempt
Just exempt.
those organizations.
I agree 100% with what John said at the beginning. 1-day pass to me, I don't think is the right way to go because you spend, these people from Iowa City come up, they pay $50, they're gone, But I think through the ordinance, we could work something through for things like this for the 501c and put a limit on it so that they ain't having something there 3 times a week. Every month,
Right, yeah, which totally understandable,
Yeah.
and we don't have plans for that,
No, I don't think it's, the plan here is not, but we're also trying to set ourselves up for,
Next time, yeah, right, yeah.
we're going to become a 501c3, 3C3.
And maybe that they still apply for the permit,
Yep.
but it's still a 0 fee, like.
So I wonder, could we do that, we could apply for the permit, like as the PEP group, we apply for it, just to make things, I guess, easier, otherwise I'm calling up, do you have it, did you not have it, did you know where I know, okay, we did it and stuff.
With the permit though, it's, getting their license to sell food, their sales tax permit, finding all those things out, you're
So I
not
guess
gonna
once
have
you
that.
have it on file, then they can just see it.
I can see where you asked them for
Yeah.
a permit,
I
just
guess.
exempt.
You could compile it all in theory.
Right.
But as far as a permit through the city, if they applied for a permit through the city for vendor truck, but if it's a nonprofit, then it could be a 0 fee to the PEP group, At least they're still going through the steps, still getting our permit. But I don't know how that'd work if a vendor came in that wasn't licensed to the state either. If that'd fall back on us because we allowed it.
Yeah, I think the city would still want to be sure, and as would the school, that all
Right,
the
and I'd be
vendors
fine with
are
that.
Yeah,
appropriately licensed. And Doug, what you were saying earlier on, if the council wanted to go this direction, if you were concerned that in theory, somebody could set up a nonprofit and just use that to have food trucks all the time, because setting up a nonprofit ain't too difficult. You could limit each nonprofit to X number of times per year. That's good. And then when those permits are coming in, they'd have to identify which nonprofit they were associated with, and you keep track of that. You know, if they hit 6 times, well, that's it. Or 5 or 10.
What do you guys think of, in this instance, since we're weeks away?
3. Close, yes. Keep
I mean,
going.
we'll go, we can have.
Yeah, that's great.
My thought process, maybe I'm crazy when I say this, but what if on this instance, we go with the 501c3 PO? I'm not there yet.
Good word.
Under this one, then we have to clean up our,
Yes.
obviously we have some language we gotta clean up.
Yep.
And then we can define maybe something that's more going forward.
Yeah, I think you've got a valid argument if you folks are comfortable with what they're proposing. I think the language in the ordinance, like I said, generally, reading it even generally would allow that because they are 501c3. So I think you're fine doing that. Then looking at taking some additional steps, to clean it up and fine tune it, which, you know, that happens. I mean, I've heard people complain, well, you passed it, now you're changing it already. Well, you know, some of the things you just don't realize till you run into fact patterns and then you think about, like, well, how can we make this work? So it seems like another element that I think is missing in here, not that you have to do it. A number of cities also look at existing brick and mortar restaurants that want to pull in a food truck for a night at their place. You know, maybe they're gonna have a band and they want to have Cinco de Mayo and it's a bar and all they have is hamburgers and kind of bar food. And they want to bring in a Mexican food truck for that night. That is supporting a tax-paying brick and mortar business. You know, so maybe that should be allowed or considered. You know, that happens quite a bit.
It's supporting them, but the city itself ain't getting the tax revenue off from that food truck.
Not sure about that.
If they're selling it out of their truck, to me,
They're
it's
selling
not
out of the truck, but they're in your city. They still have to, I'm not sure how that works, because there's no local option sales tax. Do we have local option sales tax? It doesn't apply to food, right?
I would
Or
say
does
it would.
It does,
Restaurants,
actually.
yes.
Yes, it does. It does. They used to do those taxes. Yeah.
They're still gonna, wherever their tax entity is, it'll get.
Yeah, it depends.
But they're gonna buy their drinks from the business,
Yeah,
Probably.
I would say.
right? I mean, that would be the game of that, in theory, just.
That quarterly tax return, you're supposed to identify every county where you sold and how much you sold. But that's totally up to the person filling out the form. You know, and I never had a food truck, so my place of business is always right there in Monticello. If you have a truck jumping around from county to county to county, I would think you'd keep track of that, but couldn't swear to it.
So I'm gonna just do a little process check here. We have a specific request in front of us, and then there's a much broader conversation about how we want to modify the ordinance. We may or may not want to modify the ordinance. So for the purposes of what the parents group has brought to us today, are we prepared to put a motion? Would it be a motion to Karen or Doug?
Sorry.
Would we do it in motion form to declare our interpretation of this specific situation in our ordinance?
I think tonight, we've got, you know, the agenda is supposed to put people on notice of what you're discussing. So you've got on your mobile food permit ordinance discussion. I think, based upon discussions tonight, you could probably just have a simple motion. Basically, somebody could say, I move to permit this particular event based upon the language, you know, I don't even know if you really need to move it, but to clarify that you're determining that this is a 501c3 sponsored event. Therefore, under the terms of the current ordinance, there would be no permit fees. But that you would
But
still
they would still have
expect
to file an application.
And still have to file permit, an application.
with all the required attachments.
Make a motion of that.
Does that fit?
I need you to word that for me.
case? ladies.
So let me.
Them to file it, but the fee would be waived.
Correct.
So has there anybody that has paid already that has? Yeah, 3 of them.
Nobles is coming, yes.
That currently have.
Did they pay those specifically to come in here?
No,
No, I'm not here multiple times.
yeah.
But the
That's right.
permit would be filed through
No,
them.
No,
No,
the city.
Each-
Those are already in the city.
each vendor will submit their.
they need to do it.
permit.
It's all their information.
And the
That's
three
right.
that permitted already are coming.
Right.
They're gonna be back. Nobles, I know will be back, right? For instance.
And it'll be crystal clear that it's just the one event.
I think you're finding that this event qualifies.
Right, but I'm saying they're not, just because they filed for the permit, even if they can't come next Tuesday.
That's correct.
So if we do another event, they still need to refile a permit?
Yes,
So every time we have them come, they need to refile?
or they can pay $200, they don't have to file again.
What was that?
Or they can pay $200 and never have to file till next year.
Well, or are you saying that if a vendor, just for our purposes, if they're gonna come to our event, their fee would be waived, but if they're gonna park somewhere on the road and serve the people at random, they need to, that's
Yes.
okay. There's payable permits and not.
Right, and this, at this
What
point,
they do with their other dates and times is subject to your ordinance.
But let's say they're coming back in August, you want them to refile, we will be at the school August 5th,
right,
submit this permit, and then you will waive it again.
maybe.
As long as.
Wait, this is a discussion, we have to finalize and clean up our wording.
Do we really need
Right.
that, or do we just need to have the information?
Well, the concern, and I didn't think of until you just brought that up, Emily, is if we give them a permit at zero cost for this event, what's to stop them next week from showing up at Mighty M and selling food?
So
They have a
I think
permit.
you want to.
I think that what, the way that will be handled is, right now, the permit cards are green. They're fluorescent something, they have to put them in their window, and the PD's aware of it, so we could make that a different permit colored card So- for an event that
There you go.
So it's,
I think it would be easy enough to identify.
It's good.
You're gonna
That's,
get-
But if your ordinance
Yes.
permit, if your ordinance eventually concluded that serving to a 501c3 is permitted, wouldn't you could just alert vendors, would be upon the 501c3 to say, pay your permit or whatever, but when you're for us, you don't need a fee. Like you pay your $200
Well, if they pay
fee.
$200 a year, they're gonna have that permit card in their window, it's not gonna
Correct.
matter if they're at your event or our event.
But your ordinance could read that if you are working with a 501c3 for an unsponsored event, the fee is waived, which would only pertain to vendors who are only coming one time to a 501c3.
To that event, that's what I was
Yeah.
talking about, that card.
that's, the card is for PD to notify whether they've
Mhm,
done the proper paperwork or not.
mhm. Sure.
Okay, I need wording on that motion, please.
You're scribbling.
I know it was. I don't know if I can read it.
I think you can make it real simple that,
Well, it's gotten more complicated since we.
I think you can just say, you move that the council interpret the ordinance as allowing a 501c3 to sponsor sponsor permit fee exempt vendors. Something like that.
On this date.
If you ask me to say it again, I'll say it a different way.
So every time we have an event, I guess, yes, we should we should ask, like, you're gonna let us know.
We're gonna talk through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now,
You're good.
we're trying to issue a satisfactory answer for your June event.
For the June, this is just.
I think we have more thinking to do, more deliberation to figure out how to address the longer.
It seems to me like there could be an easier way to.
Yes.
form a special event. Here's a special event application, we're gonna give it to you.
We have.
And you're
And you
gonna
get the
correct all
information,
your
yeah.
information, attach it and submit it.
That's what I was
Or the
after right there.
Yeah, we'll do that, absolutely.
But for tonight,
Tonight, vendors are exempt from fees.
Check with us next week too.
Oh, Karen, do you have that motion?
The only thing I want to encourage that when you guys go ask vendors, you try to get the local ones to come instead of Iowa City.
And we do, we always ask before, you know, but like I said, dates, some of them are booked out, you know.
Yep.
So, yeah, we will always try to do local.
The local vendors as well as ones that we haven't done a good job yet of putting it out on our website, but we'll share with you who already has a permit as well. Encourage you to invite them to participate as well.
Definitely.
Isn't this pretty much the same thing that Peosta Days does?
I think that's where that special event language kind of stuck in there, wasn't it, to be sure Peosta.
Well, specifically through
We've
PEC.
had Peosta Days since we have the ordinance adopted.
Pardon?
Peosta Days hasn't happened since the ordinance.
Grandfathered in.
It only went into effect in January.
That's why, I think that's.
But that was why
That was where the special events came from, right? The wording.
Yeah, well, that's what we,
That'd be something to think about as we tweak.
have
that.
town vendors and we invite them in for the night. I suppose somebody checks their food license.
Man on the end of this group.
I know we have special, like a car show, there is Monticello, have a couple vendors, the health department, Jones County Health Department shows up. And they go in and they stick their thermometer and stuff and they look for the hand washing sink and they test.
So we have to get Chief Comer a thermometer.
I'll get the gloves on.
So we have a motion on the table. Karen, would you read back what you have, please?
So currently, the words that I have are to interpret the ordinance to follow the 501c3, to allow the 501c3
Sponsored
To
events.
sponsor an
to
event
sponsor events
with vendors exempt from permit fees.
Second.
with vendors
Exempt.
exempt.
from permit fees.
Is that the motion you intended to put forth, Karen?
Oh geez, don't put my name on it.
It's yours.
To interpret the ordinance to allow 501c3
And I'd say we're specifically talking about this event to
Yeah.
allow your name, your organization
Is, yeah, so country parents.
as a 501c3, I would say that way. That way, we'll make that point.
to sponsor an event with vendors exempt from the permit fees.
All right, so we have that motion.
That sounds good.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Mike has a second.
Okay.
Mike, aye.
Motion carries with 5. Ladies, thanks for being here. And
Are we gonna be checked that night? Do I need to? Or are we, you know, that we're okay to go? Just don't wanna be checked out. Like, the officer won't be looking. They're all gonna we'll be there, get a burrito.
They will always file their permit application fees and they will get a card.
Okay.
Thanks, Ms. O'Brien.
thanks, Melissa.
I'll just email that to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Karen.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for your
Yep,
time.
Thanks for yours.
And good luck on your events.
Yes,
Thank you.
we'll be there.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, if Adobles is here, I'm there. I love that place.
Yeah, they're good.
So,
What do they?
we gonna look at this.
They are. Yeah.
Where's that schedule?
Well, I wanted,
For the orders.
so we got a lot of stuff on recording. I know we all took some notes. Would the council like to throw this into a future workshop?
Yes.
Do you want to go the next one or give us just a little room to think about it?
I think
Keep it so.
I think
Keep it
dinner
fresh.
later. Yeah.
Beginning of the summer, that food trucks could blow up here in the
I'll
summer.
try to,
Well, I
I'll
would-
put some options together, different ideas for you to think about.
Well, if you're talking
You can kind of go down a list, say, I like it, I don't, I do, I do,
concession
and
stand,
then I can try to build that in.
Okay.
That was my point.
But I was gonna say, I guess I have a question as far as yesterday was a perfect question, but as far as weddings and that kind of stuff, obviously we do our own thing with caterers and that kind of stuff, but we do have food truck people, crossroads, weddings that come in. I just want to make sure that's crystal clear, and I haven't read the ordinance, so I don't know what it states, but we definitely need to make sure we're doing it right in-house as well. As far as, I mean, because right now our direction is not file a permit. I mean, once they can talk to us, have the, we have the insurance from them, we get that, but
So we have weddings that bring food trucks out?
absolutely.
So we've,
would not fall underneath
The 501.
I'm gonna try to keep us from deliberating it tonight.
Yep.
No, I'm just saying, I just.
That would be a private event.
So, let's put it on for
June 3rd.
May, June. So Karen, you'll add that to our agenda. Thank you. To the council, I'll ask you, please make sure you hang on to your notes from tonight. Doug, I appreciate the offer to volunteer some verbiage ahead of time. Stacy, if you have other thoughts you want to volunteer as well, please feel free to email that to the council. And then
I sent a late note too. I'd be curious what kind of surrounding communities are doing, towns, right? Just for precedent's sake, you know? So.
Well, I definitely.
We looked into that, didn't we?
Did you?
Is working through this right now.
But even Epworth, and I mean, Epworth feels like it must be pretty open because of the coffee.
Well, they're open, but they're, you know, they don't have anything there, you know, besides the gas station, the coffee shop there. So I mean, you know, kind of like Farley, there's not the businesses like.
Mike, yeah, very fair, very fair.
So
Yeah, no,
it's kind of apples and oranges.
It's all relative, right?
Yep.
Well, Dyersville.
Anyway, it just, I mean, it's.
They have something.
Yeah, we had all those numbers.
Did you have all that?
Discussed that, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
But I think it was numbers. I don't think it was necessarily their ordinance, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
dare I ask, anything else on the mobile food truck? Thank you.
Oh, I didn't have
Yeah,
one.
Nobles coming here. Let's Karen, let's do. Okay, you let me.
Should be more considered.
So you had, what,
One person I talked to thought they should be considering a daily permit because it encourages businesses to check out kiosks and maybe we'll get a long-term person.
Right, we took, move this to the work session.
really good at Ben?
Okay.
Didn't have a-
$189.
We'll put a date back on it.
So great deliberation on that. Look forward to more in the workshop. Moving on to the boards and commissions appointment discussion.
I typed in a little note in there.
Yeah.
On the administrative part. This just came up in discussing how the city handles board members whose terms are running out, the reappointment process, who actually appoints. And the city code isn't real clear on that, but in city code and state code, you know, all the appointments really only have two boards right now to be concerned with, the Board of Adjustment and P&Z. Typical process would be for the mayor to present a name saying, I'm recommending that this person be appointed, and the council votes. If the council says no, well, then you say no, and the mayor has to find somebody else. The biggest piece of this too is staying on top of terms. And it's hard, I understand it's hard, but it's something easy than this. So talk to Kelly in the clerk's office about building this into her job duties and description, that she will track people's appointments and know when they're gonna run out and give the mayor 60 days notice, hey, so-and-so's term is gonna be up. Can reach out to that person, do you wanna be reappointed, do you not wanna be reappointed? Or the mayor and or the council would say, you know what, they never show up at meetings, you know, they don't read the materials, we should really look for somebody else. And then notify them, go through that process. But it's just a way of, you know, staying on top of it. So that's why this is there.
Would the mayor contact them then, or would the mayor appoint Kelly to contact them?
Oh, it could go either way. A lot of times an ordinance on a point like that would say the mayor or the mayor's designee. So you could say, Kelly, why don't you reach out to them if they want to be reappointed, great. Or if the mayor wanted to touch base, the mayor could say, yeah, I'll reach out to them. Tell them thanks for their service and we hope you stay on. You know, so one or the other. So I would say, as I noted in here, I think this could be a code amendment at some point. Even if it's not, I wouldn't do it. It might be something you fix if you're fixing other things, try to fix a number of things all at once. This could be one of them, but more than anything, just kind of having this policy in place. This is how we're going to do it. Have somebody kind of on top of the process.
So in your two attachments, do either of these have revised verbiage
Those are the ordinances as they stand
as
today.
they stand today?
Yes.
So you're advising us to make it as a standing procedure, but not necessarily
I think when it comes time to maybe clean up the ordinances and do some things, then I'd build some language. You know,
I'm good with that.
but until then, I think it's just kind of a policy that's,
Do we have to make a motion to do that, or is it just,
I don't think so.
This is just a discussion item.
Noted for future change.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, how do we capture notes like that we can accumulate a change that has, okay, over the past year, here's all the input we had? Do we have a mechanism to capture and bring that back up?
You need a mechanism or you lose it. You know, I don't know how many times over the years we would find things in the code that needed cleaning up. You're like, yeah, we need to do that. And then a year and a half later, you're like, well, wasn't that, there was something, wasn't there, that we talked about?
On the flip side, what's the downside of just immediately make the change? So we identify a need for a change with.
No downside, really. You know,
Keeps it cleaner.
Yes and no.
Is it up to quite a bit of
It
work?
makes a lot of little ordinances too.
yeah, I don't, has the city undergone a complete code review?
We did every year we've been implementing like the ordinances that were recently adopted and any code changes
Does
like. from
ECIA
the
help with
CIA,
that?
yes, and we talked about maybe going with Iowa codification and doing a complete code rewrite.
The benefit of Iowa codification, or there's another group kind of like it, but they can put together your ordinance in a fashion that's very consistent with how ordinances look in many other communities and give you a very usable, searchable ordinance for your. The ordinance that we have now, I think you can probably have, even on, I haven't looked at the new website, but it'll probably be a case where you can click on the index and look at it, or you can click on the ordinance and scroll through it. But if you wanted to search for a vendor or a peddler, you know, with an Iowa codification updated ordinance, that you could type in that word and it'll pull up everything in your ordinance and spell, you know, take you right to it.
So ours, it's PDF, but you can do the Control F defined keywords, if that's what you're referring to.
See, I'm not that techy.
Yeah. Defined functionality isn't the.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, you can,
Okay.
but I still do think that updating that to an Iowa codification, now we've grown to be a larger city where, you know, it was fine when we were small, but I think we need to, you know, I feel like our code is hard to navigate.
It is a little bit, it might take two. But I've seen worse. You know, and because they aren't watching, they have a meeting tonight, the city of Coggan. Just on one hand, they wanted me to do some nuisance enforcement on some things for nuisance. As the police chief will do this, the police chief will do that, the police chief will do that. You don't have a police department. Who's the police chief? Oh yeah, I don't know. That probably was years ago when we had one, like way back. You know, there's a provision in there that it's still illegal to expectorate in public.
Yeah, I think.
Spitting.
Expectorate.
You know, and I mean, it's okay, so are you gonna enforce that? You know, that's just the weird things. Things that go back to even like tying up your horse where you can or can't tie up your horse. You know?
So how do we move forward from this point?
You know,
We need to budget for it.
yeah, I would bet it would be $5,000 or $6,000 to get an Iowa codification update. But, you know, which is a very good template, but then you still need to look at it to be sure that, you know, it has in there the little nuances of your code that you want to keep. Your food vendor reads the way it does, and, you know.
Karen, do we have a Word version of our code of ordinances?
Mm-hmm.
So in the interest of capturing these things on the fly, I'm wondering if we could put that in, so we've got Office 365 now, put that in a Teams folder. And then anybody could go and enter comments on it. They wouldn't be able to change the text, but they could enter comments.
If you find inconsistencies or
We're
things.
gonna talk about that though, because that whole Teams folder, we're
It's a little,
on the struggle bus with that a little bit in the office anyway.
so we'll address that.
Yeah,
This doesn't have to happen tomorrow,
no, I understand what you're saying.
but we'd have our markup version of the ordinance. And then we could just accumulate those, and then when it's time to do a revision, we pull it up and look at all the comments that have accumulated.
It would be easy enough too. I mean, I don't want, with Iowa codification, they take your code and they look at it and then they try to build around it. So we could easily ask them, you know, for a bid, you know, They do the same thing that ECI would do. Annually, they say, here's some legislative changes that, need to be addressed in your code. And there's a fee for that. It's not usually very much, depending on how active the legislature is.
And then they incorporate all the ordinances that were
That the city did over there. Yeah.
here.
Yeah, my experience that somebody like Iowa Codification is a much more professional approach than what you're getting with ECIA, not speaking negatively of them. That's
No.
what they do.
Yeah. And this was fine when you're a city of 100 or 150 or 200, but now that we've grown way past that.
I would like to get a budget line item from her, a quote, and then maybe even amend the budget after July.
Yeah.
To get moving forward with it, because we're gonna keep growing and we're gonna keep on having issues and.
Yeah.
Clean as you can be, right?
It's kind of in that category of some other things we mentioned. You get handbook, it's another one that I've been working on. Things like this, there's others we've talked about, but it's hard to get to. Job descriptions.
And this shouldn't be a surprise to us, right? We've got, with 2 city administrator changes, we're going to get different perspectives than we've had before. So, and that to me is an incredibly healthy thing. We just need to be prepared to realize that there's going to be some new motivators to change, and we're going to have to get comfortable queuing those up in a way that fits our need. We can't do them all immediately, right? So we just got to start thinking in those terms. You mentioned operations audit of sorts. So I look at this, it's like, well, is this one piece that would be part of an operations audit? So rather than just see this and now immediately go fix it, well, let's get the whole on it, and then we'll see it in the context of other changes. So we can prioritize what we bite off first.
Get it.
So do we need anything more on the Board of Commissions then, or do we kind of have a?
No, I think you're good for now, but I think we're just tracking it. So when you do take that next step, and
For the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah.
I owe you a update, Jim, on that, so I'll let myself a note.
Even one of the PCC board we talked about, there's some discussions there with maybe making that more of a formal park and recreation advisory board. So that's another piece of the puzzle.
All right, so recognizing that all of the drink bottles except for Mike's are empty.
Well, I can get on that.
We'll move on to the next item, the sign permit application. So I think we have all had direct familiar exposure to this. Specifically the change signs as part of the Western Dubuque Lions Club, as sponsored by Western Dubuque Lions Club. And again, it's a code discussion of what, so this, our action for tonight is what?
A permit.
So we have a permit to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the permit.
I'll second.
Okay.
Karen, I.
John,
Mike, I.
Hope you've done.
Motion carries with 5.
But I mean, is there
is there
language that needs to be adjusted in this too, to try to, but do we want to do these as a case by case basis?
I've never seen, and I understand where you're coming from. I've never seen a permit granted for an organization for multiple signs all over the community. We don't know how many, we don't know where. But I get this is an unusual situation, but it's probably something you want to try to address in your code.
Okay.
There was a note included with the permit.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was.
Asked us to consider a code change unless it was a clear interpretation in this case. And I think that's good guidance.
Yeah, that's wrong.
So I would suggest that it's not the same burning platform as the prior discussion on the mobile food trucks. So in order of priority, maybe we focus on that one first.
Yeah.
And then once we get an ordinance out there, or the ordinance is out there in a markup form, then we could start to add comments for things like this. So I suggest, yes, we should, but I would propose we do it after the mobile food truck.
So does this involve 501c3 also?
no, right?
Oh,
but it doesn't matter whether you're five oh
Well,
one.
that's a,
But it doesn't, the permit has nothing to do with that.
sign permit,
The
but
sign permit has nothing to do with whether you're five oh one.
your political sign is,
They're exempt.
get signed.
They're exempt. All right.
They're exempt, she said.
Yeah.
Political sign.
Pardon me?
These signs were small and they didn't need permit? That-
No, they actually did. It wasn't,
They
it
were
wasn't,
covered, they're not
it
covered.
wasn't something that was exempt by the ordinance.
All right, the action has been addressed on that one.
Karen, do you have more?
Yeah, is there something?
No, I'm just saying, you know, is this, are we running the same here with our 501c3? I mean, can a nonprofit put out signs for promotional
Only if,
membership or something like that, or an event?
only if they get a permit, right?
Right.
Depending on the-
Yeah,
How did we handle Boy Scouts signs? Like, sign up for Boy Scouts?
I don't remember.
Did they ever do anything with no?
I don't remember seeing.
Because they were kind of small little signs, right?
Yes, yes, they still go up and.
All right, well, they're just something else. Look for Karen, I mean, I'm just curious, because they're typically not real big either, maybe more like what we just permitted.
And I honestly don't. If it's a big operation, I saw those signs. I didn't really even think about them needing a permit until the question was asked of me and I got looking into the code.
Sure, yep, okay.
We do Piasta, the Piasta Day signs too. I mean, we've never done a permit for those either.
But I think they're exempt. It's a community.
You know what it says under no banners, pennants, twirling signs, balloons, or other similar devices shall be allowed as permanent signs, but may be permitted for temporary purposes as specified in the temporary signs section. Temporary sign sub 6, which is a promotional sign advertising a special community event. Okay, so that may be the area. This isn't, these signs are not a community event. I'm not sure.
Well,
We'll sign up for Boy Scouts for a specific day.
Yeah. I'm not-
Yeah, that is, it's a sign.
But maybe there's another category to cover signs that are something else.
How about like the crossroads? You know, stick out.
But they're temporary, they take them down, right?
Well,
Yeah,
this is-
I mean, they put them up every morning.
Put them up in the morning, put them down at night.
All right, so we'll create time to go deeper into the ordinance in the future. That is our last agenda item other than citizen comment. We have no citizens, none online as.
Look like it.
You have a meeting set up, a phone conference with ITC on May 26th. One of the topics I'll talk to them about is the substation. And if there's any future upgrades, changes, et cetera, that may at least make them aware that it seemed like that moved, if that was possible.
Perfect.
So I was talking about another issue, so I said, well, we'll talk about that.
Seize the
Go
moment.
ahead. You can take that poll out of my yard, please.
After your house, you take over wherever the-
For the waterfront.
Yeah.
All right, we've concluded the agenda items. We can take a motion to adjourn.
Last night, when you guys, I sent you all setting information.
Yes.
Email. And I printed all hard copies too. Do you have mailboxes, or maybe I can give them to you tonight before I leave?
Perfect.
I forgot to grab them off.
What, do you want that, when do you want that by?
The date's on there.
June 12th.
The June,
Yeah. found
Was
it.
it the 12th?
Oh, right.
That sounds about
That
right.
can't be right, the 12th.
Doug, are you good with us adjourning?
Don't ask us to adjourn.
Graduation.
I think I heard a motion to adjourn from the far left.
Second. Again.
Can I?
okay.
Motion carries with 5, being adjourned.
I did, I picked them up.